All right, let's just jump right into this because it's a big one. Think about it. We spend our entire lives doing literally everything we can to avoid being bored, right? We fill every single spare second with a podcast, a video, a quick scroll through our feeds. But what if I told you that avoiding boredom is one of the absolute worst things you can do for your happiness, for your sense of meaning? Today, we're going to dig into this pretty radical idea that you actually need to be bored. And look, this isn't just my opinion. That's a direct, stark warning from Arthur Brooks over at Harvard. The stakes here could not be higher. He's saying the link between never being bored and not having a sense of meaning, it's crystal clear. So this isn't just about feeling a little antsy at a stoplight. This is about the fundamental purpose of our lives.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question. If this state of being bored is so critical for us, why do we treat it like the plague? Why do we run from it, sometimes to, well, truly absurd lengths? To figure that out, we've got to look at what's actually happening inside our brains when we're forced to do absolutely nothing. Okay, let's get into the science of this thing. When your mind isn't laser-focused on a task, when you're just staring out the window or waiting in line, a very specific part of your brain just lights up. And what happens in this network, well, it explains both the incredible power of boredom and our deep, deep instinct to avoid it. It's called the default mode network, or DMN for short. You can think of it like your brain's screensaver. But instead of, flying toasters, it's this incredibly powerful system for mind wandering, for connecting old ideas in new ways, and for thinking about yourself and your future. It's the part of your brain that just kicks on when you accidentally leave your phone in the car and you have to just sit there. And as one wild experiment shows, we really do not like when that network kicks on.
So get this, a fascinating experiment at Harvard really paints a picture here. Researchers put people in a room and gave them a super simple instruction. Just sit here for 15 minutes. No phones, no books, nothing. Just you and your thoughts. That was option 1.
Option 2? Well, there's a little button in front of them, and if they pressed it, they could give themselves a painful electric shock. So the choice was pretty clear. Sit quietly with your own mind for a few minutes, or, voluntarily zap yourself with electricity. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? The results were, they were just stunning. A huge majority of people, especially men, chose to shock themselves rather than just sit alone with their thoughts. They literally preferred physical pain to the mental state of just being bored. It's a shocking result, and it just begs the next question. So you have to wonder why. Why is just unstructured thought so uncomfortable that we'd rather feel pain? Well, it's because the default mode network doesn't just daydream about puppies and rainbows. It forces us to confront the big, messy, existential stuff. What is my life even about? Am I really happy? What's my purpose here? These are uncomfortable, for sure, but they're also the most important questions we can possibly ask ourselves.
And this is where the modern world just crashes into the story. Because we haven't just learned to tolerate this discomfort less, we've invented the perfect tool to escape it entirely. We've actually created a cycle that lets us constantly sidestep the deep thinking our brains are literally wired to do. And that tool, you already know what it is. It's your smartphone. It's the ultimate escape hatch. The moment the default mode network starts to rev its engine, in those 15 seconds waiting for the light to change, in the elevator waiting for your coffee, we pull out our phones and we shut it right down. We've become absolute experts at never ever being alone with our own thoughts. And this creates what Arthur Brooks calls a doom loop of meaning. It goes exactly like this. First, you feel that tiny flicker of boredom. 2, you instinctively reach for your phone. 3, that instantly kills the default mode network. 4, you successfully avoid those big, uncomfortable questions about your life. But then comes number 5, a creeping, growing sense of hollowness and a lack of purpose. And the more you repeat this loop, the harder it becomes to find any real meaning. So this is the crucial point, right? This isn't just some abstract philosophical problem. There are real-world consequences. A lot of researchers are now arguing that a huge reason for the explosion in depression and anxiety we're seeing is that we've stopped even looking for meaning in our lives because we've literally engineered away the boredom that forces us to start the search. Okay, so that's the problem. It's kind of heavy. But what's the solution? The good news is you can actually fight back. You can intentionally, deliberately reintroduce boredom into your life and break that cycle. It just takes a little bit of practice and setting up some clear rules for yourself. So here's how an expert on this subject actually does it. Brooks follows these personal rules. No devices after 7 p.m. That lets his brain actually wind down. He never, ever sleeps with his phone. That's a huge one for a lot of us.
No phones during family meals because, you should be present with the actual people who are there. And he takes regular screen fasts just to reset his brain's addiction to that constant stimulation. Now, I know what you're thinking. The biggest excuse people have is, well, what if there's an emergency? But let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Your kid's school calling you? That's an emergency. Finding out what's trending on Twitter? That is not an emergency. We use the idea of a potential emergency to justify what is, in reality, just an addiction to distraction.
And hey, you don't have to go cold turkey. You can start small. Try this. Next time you go to the gym, don't listen to a podcast. Just be in your head with the workout. Or try commuting to work with the radio off. Just start by carving out 15 minutes, just 15, of intentional, device-free boredom and just see how it feels. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. That's kind of the whole point.
So why would you put yourself through that discomfort? Because the rewards, what's waiting on the other side, are absolutely immense. When you learn to tolerate and maybe even embrace a little boredom, you unlock some of the most profound benefits for your work, your relationships, and your overall happiness.
So what's the real payoff for all this? Well, when you finally let your mind wander, you will have your most interesting, your most creative ideas. It's kind of paradoxical, but practicing boredom actually makes you less bored with the ordinary things in your life, like your job and your relationships. And, most importantly, you'll finally start doing the hard, necessary work of digging into life's biggest questions. You'll actually start building a life of real meaning. And you know what? As a result of all that, you might just get a whole lot happier. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you're waiting for an elevator or you're standing in line and you feel that familiar twitch in your hand to reach for your phone, what are you going to do? Are you going to shut down that default mode network, or are you going to let it run? That tiny little choice, repeated over and over again, might just change the entire direction of your life.